Welcome to another operations video on the Willow Creek Railroad. In this two-part video, we're going to focus on operation of the ML Turn local freight, including how the ML Turn is built in Waverly Yard, how the sidings at Summit Springs and Lookout Pass are switched, how the train is turned in Bucky's Crossing, and how the mine at Highland is switched, including an unexpected twist in today's operation. I posted a video in 2017 showing the operation of local freights. Since then, there have been several changes to the layout. If you wish to follow the changes, here they are. Several track routing changes were made, as discussed in the video listed here. A new interchange track was added at Summit Springs, as shown in the interchange job video. And finally, an Arduino was added to control the signals in Highland Loop Block, as discussed in this third video. Welcome to Waverly Yard, a major engine servicing facility and classification yard on the Willow Creek subdivision. The Waverly Yardmaster is in charge of this yard and is kept very busy during operating sessions, since almost all trains that run on the subdivision begin and/or end in this yard. This morning, the Yardmaster is preparing to build the ML Turn. The Yardmaster has a lot of information available to help him do his job, including an arrival-departure guide showing the maximum length of the ML Turn and the destinations associated with the train. A quick reference card shows the capacity of all industrial sidings on the subdivision. The capacity of the yard lead and arrival tracks in the yard, and the recommended blocking order for outbound trains. I've introduced a new report for the Yardmaster that shows the number of cars to be picked up at each industry and the remaining siding capacity once those cars are picked up. At the brewery, for example, there's one car to be picked up, leaving a maximum capacity of 2 cars on that siding. Similarly for the interchange track. Since there are very few off-spot locations on the layout, this information helps the Yardmaster plan the building of outbound trains. The report also includes instructions to the Yardmaster, such as priorities to consider when building a train. The Yardmaster begins by pulling the car cards for destinations serviced by ML Turn. We have 1 car for the mine and 7 cars for Summit Springs. Remember that the arrival-departure guide indicated that ML Turn is limited to 6 cars when leaving Waverly Yard, so the Yardmaster has some planning to do. The Yardmaster lays the car cards out on his work shelf. ML Turn will definitely include the car for the mine. Remembering the priority to handle cars for the brewing and bottling companies, he decides to include the 2 cars for the brewery. Checking the agent report again, he sees that there's capacity only for 2 cars for the interchange track, so he selects the first 2 cars from the remaining cars destined for the interchange. Yardmaster is now ready to start building ML Turn. He checks out the yard tracks and finds the gondola for the mine on track 4. The reefer and the Santa Fe boxcar for the brewery at the end of track 1. And the 2 cars for the interchange at the head end of track 1. The Yardmaster has determined his action plan, so he moves his switcher into position. Because the departure track is a stub-ended track, he'll build ML Turn starting at the caboose end of the train. He first pulls the 2 cars heading to the interchange track, and then adds the gondola for the mine at Highland, which will be the last car on the train as recommended by the blocking order on the quick reference card we saw earlier. Before moving this cut of cars to the departure track, the Yardmaster picks up a caboose. These 4 cars will be the back end of ML Turn. The Yardmaster drops these 4 cars off on departure track number 2. With the cars selected for the mine at Highland and the interchange track, the Yardmaster now turns his attention to pulling the 2 cars destined for the brewery. The final 2 cars for ML Turn are a bit buried on track number 1, so the Yardmaster moves his switcher and starts pulling the required cars, placing them temporarily on the adjacent yard track. The rest of the cars will be returned to track 1, where they'll wait for a later train. The Yardmaster moves the last 2 cars to the departure track. With its work done for now, the switcher returns to the yard tower. EMD GP7 number 718 has been assigned to the ML Turn. The engineer moves his diesel from the engine servicing area to departure track number 2. With number 718 in position, the ML Turn is complete and ready for departure. ML Turn is now built, with cars destined for Summit Springs Industries blocked at the front of the train, followed by the interchange cars, and finally the one car destined for the mine at Highland. We check the Yardmaster's guide and see that we'll have at least 2 other trains on the subdivision with us. Train number 22 is sitting on the departure track next to us, and he'll leave the yard before us. Someplace we'll also meet passenger train number 9, so we'll be listening for instructions from the dispatcher. Here's the route that our train will take. We'll depart Waverly Yard and head east. At Summit Springs, we'll switch the local industries and the SP&S interchange track. We'll leave Summit Springs and continue east. We'll come to the mine at Highland, but since this is a facing point turnout, we'll switch the mine on our return trip after we turn our train at Bucky's Crossing. At Bucky's Crossing, we'll work with the local yardmaster to swap our engine and caboose end for end. We'll then return to Highland and switch the Willow Creek Mining Company. Finally, we'll head back to Waverly Yard, thus ending our run. The dispatcher is anxious to get things moving, so he clears train number 22, which is sitting on the track next to us, for departure. Train number 22 makes its way out of the yard, finally passing the block signal at the yard's entrance. The signal will turn red once train number 22 has entered the Highland Loop block at Waverly Junction. The ML turn will be cleared for departure as soon as number 22 clears the block, as indicated by the signal returning to green. There's also a flashing red signal on the Yardmaster's control panel, telling him that the block is occupied. Once number 22 clears the block, the red control signal stops flashing. The dispatcher has finally cleared ML turn for departure, and we slowly make our way out of Waverly Yard. By the time we hit the main line, number 22 will have made the reversing loop at Summit Springs and be headed downgrade towards Bucky's Crossing. The dispatcher has informed us that we'll meet number 22 at Sarlot Viaduct. After we clear Highland Loop block, number 22 is free to continue his journey. ML turn climbs the 2% grade through Latah Pass. Finally arriving at Lookout Pass. We head around the reversing loop, crossing High Bridge, and finally arrive at the passing siding at Lookout Pass. We'll park our train here as we switch Summit Springs and the interchange track. We lay the ML turn car cards out on the work shelf, recognizing that we have 2 cars to set out at the brewery. We then check the car cards for Summit Springs Industries. There are 2 cars at the brewery, only one of which is ready to be picked up. And there are 2 cars at the bottling company that we'll pick up. We uncoupled the 2 cars to be set out from our train and back into Summit Springs. We start our work at the brewery, where we have 1 car to pick up. Naturally, it's the second car on the siding, so we have to temporarily move the first car to make our pickup. Actually, this works out well for us, since we're going to pick up both cars located at the bottling company next door. So we place the boxcar on that siding, and we'll pick up all 3 cars at one time after we're done switching the brewery. As we're respotting the boxcar at the brewery, we'll also set out the other 2 cars that we brought with us. This will complete our work at the brewery. Finally, we pick up the boxcar from the brewery, plus the 2 cars sitting at the bottling company. We're now ready to put these 3 outbound cars back on our train. We put the car cards for the 2 cars we delivered to the brewery into the car card box. Now it's time to work the interchange track. The outbound car card box is for cars that the SP&S Railway will pick up later today. We're interested in the 1 N&W boxcar filed in the inbound car card box. We scan the cars sitting on the interchange track and see that our N&W boxcar is the second car in line, right behind the gondola. Time to do some switching. We start by running our locomotive around to the rear of the train, since the cars to be set out on the interchange track are located there to facilitate the facing point turnout. The 2 cars destined for the interchange track are the yellow boxcar and the white reefer. We start by pulling the gondola and the N&W boxcar out of the interchange track and set the N&W boxcar aside on the adjacent passing track where our train is parked. We then return the gondola to the interchange track, along with the 2 cars that we brought to set out. We move back to the passing track and push the N&W boxcar, the gondola destined for the Willow Creek mine, and the caboose back onto the rear of our train. Once we run our locomotive back around our train and couple on to the head end, we notify the dispatcher that our work here is done and we're ready to depart Summit Springs. While we wait for clearance to depart, we file the car cards for the 2 cars we set out on the interchange track into the outbound car card box. Finally, we check our car cards against the consist of our train to make sure everything is in order. We have 1 more car to set out at the Willow Creek Mining Company in Highland. With clearance received, ML Turn leaves Summit Springs and we continue our journey east. This completes part 1 of our video. Operation of the ML Turn, including an unexpected twist in the operating session, continues in part 2.